Your love lifted me higher than I've ever been lifted before. So keep it up, quench my desire, and I'll be at your side forevermore. You know your love keep on lifting higher, higher and higher. I said your love keep on.
Hey everybody, welcome to the daily update for Friday, May 1st. Happy Friday. Got some big breaking news. I don't have strep. I finally broke down and went to urgent care today. Checked me out, did the whole thing, said no strep. Looks like it's just some sort of rhinovirus. I should start feeling better in the next day or two. Gave me some really interesting, and I thought some pretty complex medical advice for what I've got. He said, it's super important to stay hydrated. So, stay hydrated. Before we get to the charts, I wanted to mention one quick thing. I forgot to tell you about this in Houston. So I was out in Houston for the funeral of my wife's uncle. Massive funeral. And we're all in the church. It's at the Vietnamese Martyrs Church in Pearland, Houston. We have the whole thing. And then they go next door to this other big building to eat. Everyone's eating over there. So I'm eating over there for a while. And then I decided I want to walk around. So I walk back towards the church and I notice that there's still people in the entrance part of the church. And I peek in there and I see the coffin for my wife's uncle. And there's a lot of people, Vietnamese people all around it. And particularly older men just standing around it. And I noticed that my wife's aunt, the widow, is at the front. So I step in, and what's happening is the priest is going person by person and giving them the microphone, and they're saying something about my wife's uncle. I don't speak Vietnamese, or speak a little bit, so I didn't understand what it was, but you could tell from the tone of their voice, it was very heartfelt. And it felt like it was maybe people that were very close in the church, because I could tell there was some office staff there. There was people like from the maintenance crew, people from the security crew, and standing with the security crew was a Houston police officer, Houston PD, Vietnamese guy. Anyway, so I'm watching this whole thing. I'm in there for about 20 minutes watching, and I decide to leave. So I walk out. All of a sudden I hear from behind me, "Hey, can I talk to you?" And I turn around and it's the police officer. And he goes, "Can you come over here for a minute?" And I'm like, yeah, sure. I come over. And he says, "You're going to be here tomorrow, right?" And I said, "Yeah, of course. There's going to be like another event the next day." I said, yeah, of course I'm going to be here. He goes, "Okay, so what's the plan? Are you coming in over here?" And I said, "Yeah, I'll come in over here." And he's asking me all these questions for like 5-10 minutes. And finally he stops, he looks at me, he goes, "Wait a minute, do you work for the mortuary?" And I said, "No." This is my wife's uncle who passed away." And he's like, "Oh, I thought you were driving the hearse." Right now, the only other white guy at this event is the hearse driver, who's happened to be tall, was wearing a suit like me. So I looked at him and I said, "'Cause I'm white?" And I could see in his face, he was just about ready to do that cop thing where he'd go like, "Oh, of course not." And he paused for like a beat and he goes, "Yeah." So anyway, I saw him the next day at the eating thing. I told my wife the story and some of her cousins, and I saw him at the eating thing. I'm like, "Hey, how you doing, buddy?" Not the hearse driver. So, all right, let's get into today's. Actually, before we get into today's action, let's talk about the perfect technical trade. That's today's daily update, right? All right. The perfect technical trade is kind of like a white whale. It's very hard to catch, the perfect technical trade. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't always be striving to catch the perfect technical trade. And why? Because the more technically correct a trade is, the more beneficial it is. First of all, it helps us avoid tying up money when we don't need to, right? So opportunity cost. I'll give you an example. So if we look here at Tesla, if you're just trying to like buy Tesla at random points here, you're going to be sitting there with your money tied up for a long time. That's not a good use of your capital. You could be putting it somewhere else. The other thing that we try to do when it comes to the perfect technical trade is we want to minimize risk, right? We want to always try to minimize risk. So if you're just throwing your money into Tesla or whatever the stock is willy-nilly, you're not quantifying risk. So the way it starts is, this is the perfect scenario. First, we look at the market environment, the macro market environment. Are we on a risk on standpoint in the market? Then we look at the individual stock. Is the chart setting up on a daily basis? On a daily chart, does it look like we have a better risk reward? And then we even go to the next level, is like, the more precise you can get into that stock, the more you optimize your time money ratio and the more you eliminate your risk. So for example, if you have a stock, if the market on a macro basis is setting up for risk on, or it is risk on, you find a stock that is set up on a daily, you could buy that the day before it triggers, but you're taking extra risk. So the more specific, the more perfect that technical trade, the better we optimize our money and the lower the risk we have. Again, it's almost impossible for that to happen. But we're always trying to strive for that. Can we get 70% of the perfect technical trade, 80%, whatever it is? So there was an opportunity for the perfect technical trade today in Tesla. Now, just for context, yesterday I added Tesla to our daily setups list for the first time in quite a while. And the daily setups are the names that I think have the best chance of moving the most in the next 1 to 3 days, and then 1 to 3 weeks if they transition to a swing trade. So I added it here, and what I said, and you can go back and look at the video. Well, you can't unless you're a paid subscriber, but you just have to take my word for it. What I said in the video was, we're not set up on a daily, but the action in Tesla, this big move up here, this pullback, and particularly this reversal day, tells me that it could probably go. What we want to look for is a gap up, pullback, hold support, and then a level that we can trade against. So let's go take a look at the daily action today, the intraday action. And I have to apologize because my gardener is starting. But so we're going to roll this through in real time. This is what Tesla looked like coming in to the open this morning. We're on a 5-minute chart here, so we're going to roll it through. So first thing we get is this bar that runs back up past yesterday's high. The green bar here is yesterday's high. And then it comes back in. Now, it's not a gap. I mean, I guess technically it's a little bit of a gap, but it's a gap, and then it's a pullback. And then you start to see this, right? It's trying to push lower. We're trying to go red. And here's yesterday's close, right? So that's basically break even. And so after we've done the gap up run, pullback, there it is. There's a perfect hammer. So that's a spot that you can define your risk. What are you defining? 382.29 to 379.69. So let's call it $3. $3 on a $382 stock. Now, you don't have to use this candle as your risk. You could put a stop down here. You could probably even give it to here, depending on how much room you want to give it. I'm just talking in the perfect world technical setup. You've got the attempt to move up here, the gap, the reversal, trying to go lower, and then you have a hammer right at the close. And so what happens if you take an entry above the high of this bar? You get filled on the next bar, and then you start seeing price rise here, right? And there we go. And then we break back above yesterday's high, and you're starting to see this spread between the 5, the 9, and the 20, which is good. Now, there's actually a secondary spot here that you could get involved in Tesla if you didn't get involved the first place, and that's right here. So there's the aggressive spot, that reversal hammer right off of previous day's close. Then you break and hold above the previous day's high, right? You break here, you're testing, and then there's another hammer right above the 8. It's not exactly a perfect one. It's got some wick up here, but it's a good spot, a good risk reward spot. Again, you could put a stop below here. You could put it here. You could put it here, depending on how aggressive you are. What happens after that? You see price just starts to really ramp, and you see that big spread now between the 5, and we're doing this on a closing basis, right? So you see this bar right here, but it didn't close, below your stop if it would have been there. And you're getting this real definitive spread, and price just starts going rocket to the moon, right? And so now you got a question, or you got a choice. Your choice is, do you take a partial at a spot and hold it and see how we finish the day and then transition it into a swing trade? Or do you just take it all off because you just want to do it for a cash flow trade? And so we keep going higher. And you could say, okay, there's the break below the 5. Maybe you take off half there. Or maybe you want to wait until it breaks below the 9. So we're still going higher here. All right. And I mean, you could say, okay, that's the break there. Or you could say, I'm going to hold until it's below the 20. It's all depends on your own risk. Now, there's a late day entry here. I don't really recommend that after this long of a run. It is working out a little bit, but you'll see that it ends up failing, right? And so now you got a question like, okay, what do I do now? I was going to try to swing it. Maybe you put a stop below this low here, and either you get stopped up out there. Let's go back here. Sorry. Right? You get stopped out. Okay, and you're out. Or maybe you're not out. Maybe you say, hey, I got enough out of this stock here. I took half off. Maybe you take 2/3 off. You got a big profit here. Price can get all the way down here now since you've taken so much off that you still would be break even. And that gives you a shot to swing it over the weekend. The point is, that's the optimal scenario, the perfect technical trade. Again, we're never going to hit that trade. I probably hit maybe 5 of them, 6 of them in my whole life. But you want to get as close as you can to that because it's going to give you the best chance to use your money efficiently and to minimize your risk. By getting into this stock on the open, you didn't have to hold it overnight because, who knows? It could have just gap down 10 points, right? All right, let's, before we get to everything, Saturday Cut will be coming out tomorrow. This is free for anyone. So if you're subscribed to the Lund Loop, you'll get it in your email. And don't forget, for those of you who like books, the next edition of the Bibliophile goes out tomorrow as well. You can go to thebibliophile.com and sign up for that. So, all right, let's get to the rest of the market.